Hey, welcome to Frequently Asked Questions number 2, which is actually going to be like number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 probably. I get asked a lot of questions over and over, and so this video is somewhere I can refer people to answer those. Okay, question number 1. Is this ASMR? Am I listening to ASMR? Is this an ASMR channel? Are you doing ASMR? For those of you who don't know, ASMR stands for Automated Sensory Meridian Response, and people who have ASMR channels create all sorts of sounds. Could be whispering, close sounds, scratchy sounds, bumpy sounds, whatever, for the purpose of generating some kind of a physical response in the listener. Could be goosebumps, could be relaxing, etc. Many people think that my Foley channel is ASMR because it has that effect for them. That's fine. I'm happy that it's giving you an ASMR type response, but no, the first purpose of this channel is to demonstrate that the sounds I'm doing are Foley, which is sound effects for movies, TV shows, etc. But if it's giving you responses, more power to you. Question number 2, how do I become a Foley artist? I get asked this question probably more than anything else. First of all, a degree in audio, post-production, or film is definitely beneficial, but really the only way to become a Foley artist is to do an apprenticeship with an established Foley artist at their studio, kind of on the job. It's very difficult to get into because there's a high demand for people who want this job and not a lot of spaces. For instance, in Toronto, we have millions of people here, and I would estimate there's probably about 14 or 15 Foley artists. So the odds aren't good, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. Get a degree and then contact any studios around you that have a Foley component to them, and don't just try and go in there getting an apprenticeship. Go in there asking if you can volunteer to, sit in on a session, or just to clean, make coffee, do whatever it takes. And then hopefully at some point that could lead to having you sit in on some sessions and eventually potentially getting to try some Foley and then some work on short films, and then you're kind of on your way. I did about a 2-year apprenticeship, not a formal apprenticeship, but just 2 years of hanging out at a studio and watching and learning and eventually getting to try some stuff. That was unpaid, but for me, that was like 2 years of free schooling, which was incredibly valuable. And eventually I got the opportunity to work on some little films, and that led to meeting other people and moving around and working at a number of studios and eventually getting to the place I am today. So good luck. It's not easy, but you can do it. Question number 3, are you taking on an apprentice? I want to work with you. Can I work with you? I appreciate all the interest and all the people that send me messages on this. If anything changes, I will let you know, but right now I'm not taking on any apprentices currently. We have people that are newer, people that are learning, and there's really no opportunities at the moment, but thank you for your interest anyways. Question 4, how much money does a Foley artist make? I'm not going to answer that here. It's a good salary, and it varies according to your experience and your project. But if it's important to you and you are actually curious, you can send me a message on Instagram. Just DM me there, and I'm happy to answer that for you. Same name, Oddio Studio. Next question, who are you talking to in these videos that you post? I'm speaking with my engineer, who is in a separate room, and we're both watching the film, and I can hear him in my headphones, he can hear me through the mic, and we're just talking about the sounds that are being created. We're communicating back and forth, so if I go out of sync, or the perspective changes and they need to readjust their recording, we're both on the same page, so we speak constantly throughout the day. Luckily, we get along. Okay, next question. What am I looking at in all these videos? Why am I looking up like this? So I'm watching a big screen in the studio that has the scene for which I'm creating a sound. So for instance, if someone in the scene is like taking a pair of sunglasses out of a purse and unfolding them and putting them on, I have to watch and make sure my actions are in time with the actors, so the sounds that we're creating will match up with the scene perfectly. And also, the props that I'm using, is it a leather purse? Is it a canvas purse? Are the sunglasses metal rimmed? Are they plastic? And then are they being grabbed? Is it gentle? So it has to be done in real time with the scene to make sure that the sounds that we make will be believable as an element of the final soundtrack. So yeah, I'm watching the scene. The other thing I should really touch on is people ask all the time, why does Foley exist? Why don't they just use the sounds from the original on-set recordings, all that kind of stuff. I've already addressed that in a frequently asked questions #1 video, which is on my page, so you can take a look to understand the purpose of Foley and why it exists. Next question is, why do you often use things that aren't the real thing? Why am I using one prop to make the sound of a different thing? Okay, so almost all the time, honestly, if you have the exact prop, that's the best thing to use. There are a few reasons why I don't. One is I may not have that prop, in which case I'm finding something similar, something that I feel has the same acoustic properties, sounds like it, and I can manipulate that to make the sound accurate. Secondly, sometimes if a movie is a comedy, they want the sound to be larger than life and funny. So using the actual thing they have in the film isn't the best approach. You might want to get something squeakier or splashier or heavier or crackier for more of a comedic element. And then finally, sometimes you can't use the real prop because the sound you're trying to create is, somebody's finger being broken or a tooth being pulled out, for instance. In which case, there are a lot of opportunities for creativity, and you get to just use your imagination, try and picture what that sound would be like or what people expect it to be like, and then you start building it up. You start layering with what you feel would be the main basic element for that sound, and then start adding things. So it might be like a big crack for a finger break, but then you might want like a skin tear, and then you might want a little blood splurting out, depending on how violent it is. So yeah, it's all about layering, and sometimes you cannot use the real thing. What is the difference between Foley and sound effects? This is a big one. I've touched on it before, but I'll be brief here. Foley is the process of creating sounds that, generally speaking, match the actor's movements in a scene. So what I mean by that is anytime the actors are touching themselves or anything in the scene, we'll create a sound for that. That includes their own bodies, so it could be footsteps, grabs, punches, that sort of thing, as well as, picking up and putting on a boot, folding newspapers, putting on a knapsack, washing dishes, anytime their hands are in contact with anything. That also extends to animals. We don't do any of their sounds, like vocalizations, growls and that kind of thing. But we would do dog collars, we would do dog footsteps, we would do a monkey shaking leaves on a tree, anything that the animals are doing that involves movement. As well as inanimate objects, like if something rolls off a shelf, bounces, flops on the ground, we would cover that. The reason for that is that it's difficult to cover those sorts of things with a sound effects library, whereas Foley can do it much more efficiently and quickly and effectively. So sound effects editors are covering a wide variety of sounds. First of all, they'd be doing nature sounds like thunderstorms, wind, rain, that kind of thing. Then they do huge sounds like explosions, landslides, buildings toppling. They would also cover mechanical sounds such as car engines idling, revving, subways going by, a blender running, that sort of thing. And finally, like animal vocalizations would be included too, dogs barking, roosters crowing, crowing, and then just like ambient sounds, like lights buzzing, kind of room tones, just crickets, anything, cicadas, things that make you know what environment you're in. So it's a huge job, and they generally spend a lot more time on a film than a Foley artist would, because they have so much stuff to cover. Yeah, so in a nutshell, that's the difference. I hope that helps clear that up. How do you organize all your props? How do you know where everything is? Okay, so some props are organized by category. For instance, like sports. All the sports stuff would be together. We would have helmets, balls, bats, clubs, flippers, skis, anything like that. Same with like kitchen related things. Pots, pans, dishes, cutlery, everything there. So there's a whole bunch of different categories like that where we know where all the stuff is. And then other props are sorted according to material. So we have like a wood section where there might be like wood bowls and wood sticks and, you know, cutting boards and big pieces of wood and wood blocks and knife blocks and just anything that's wooden, but may not belong in a specific category. Same thing with metal stuff. We would have like thin aluminum, heavy solid metal pieces, some bars, some, you know, anything that would be considered metal. So it's usually broken down into one of those two categories, and over time you just kind of like build up a library of where everything is. So I could probably find just about anything by going directly to it in the studio at this point. Do you keep a library of all the sounds that you're creating on these films? Not really, no. We back up our films. We do keep a record of everything that we've done, but the nature of Foley is such that it doesn't make sense to go back, find a sound, and cut it into another project that you're working on. The reason Foley exists is because it's very specific to picture all the time, and it works much better to just recreate the sound every time. That allows the engineers to get the right kind of perspective, the right level, and the performances are always a little bit different. Even if it's like a hand on leg, you know, you would probably have to sift through about 3 or 4 of them before finally getting the right one. Whereas, you know, you can just perform it really quickly and get it right. The only possible exception is sometimes we would reuse like huge water splashes, because we have a good library of those, and that can be a big setup if it's just like 1 or 2 things. If we're working on a film that has a lot of water in it, we would always refill our tank and reperform all of those. How did you first learn about Foley? I went to Universal Studios when I was a kid, and I got to go up on a stage and throw some gravel and, you know, knock on a door in time with a big screen, a scene that was happening on a big screen. And that's where I first found out it was a job, and I was immediately hooked. And so it just kind of always stuck with me, and eventually I got the opportunity to get into it, which was just amazing, and I took advantage of it. Where did you get all those props that you have? They've been collected for years, 4 years, probably more. They come from everywhere. They come from garage sales, they come from antique stores. Some have been given to me by friends. Some were at the studio when I got here, many of them. There are things that were found in the garbage. They've been bought at regular stores, Value Village, like literally anywhere. If I'm walking and I see something that's being thrown out, I will go and shake it and drop it and see what it sounds like. So everywhere. All right, so I hope that helps clarify a little bit for everybody. If you have any other questions that aren't answered on here, post them below, and I'm happy to create a new frequently asked questions video, and hopefully I can answer that for you. And as always, if you enjoy these, please subscribe. It really means a lot to me. I appreciate it, and thanks for hanging out. Bye.